And to start out, people love to talk about buying Bitcoin. It's saving it. It's the best savings technology ever invented, right? And hodling it, of course. But what about spending those sats? So that's what our next panel is going to address. We have crypto payments in commerce, moderated by Irina Heaver, the crypto lawyer. Please give Irina a warm welcome back to the stage.
Hello everyone, day number 2, huh? We're still here, awesome. Thank you so much for attending our panel. And we will be talking about payments in cryptocurrency and in commerce. And we have a panel of actual practitioners who are building amazing payment solutions. And of course, we'll start with Stacy. She does not require an introduction. Stacy, welcome. Big round of applause. Sanja, CEO of Utrust, and these are the wonderful people who processing the payments for the city of Lugano, and we'll hear all about it. Sergej, CEO of Bitrefill. Last but not least, Dan, CEO of GoCrypto. So if you've been to McDonald's and you've paid for your Maccas with crypto, so it's the GoCrypto payment processing that you've used. Talking about crypto payments, a lot of people mention that it is all about banking the unbanked or allowing people to participate in commerce because it's fair and reasonable. For somebody like me who comes from the Middle East, and we have 570 million people, and only 14% have bank accounts. So we have this huge population who are not able to sell their goods and services to be able to provide for their families. So for somebody like me, allowing commerce, allowing crypto payments in commerce, it's almost a matter of human dignity. It's almost a matter of being able to provide for your family, selling your goods and services. But of course, less than 3% of the world population holds any crypto, so it's such early days. But awesome projects are helping, and partnerships with governments and also, partnerships with businesses. So we will get there. But Stacy, you had an interesting experience with paying for things in Bitcoin. So you bring a slightly different perspective to this. And when we talked about cryptocurrency and payments in commerce, you were quite interested in the payments layer of it, or the international transaction level of it. Can you?
Yes. First of all these guys are certainly building payments system. I am not, but I am working in El Salvador, which is well known for a Chivo wallet now, and I do have some experience with that. But in terms of my experience is as an early adopter of Bitcoin, and this merchant adoption was something that has always been talked about, and buying coffee with Bitcoin and stuff like that. So if you're early, you do have a reluctance to ever blow $700,000 on an iPhone again. Like when back in the early days when I used my Bitcoin to buy an iPhone, and I thought it was so freaking amazing that, wow, Apple just took this Bitcoin for this iPhone that was like 10 Bitcoin or 15 Bitcoin when I bought 2 for me and Max. So that is how, when I look at the merchant adoption and this like pressure to spend your Bitcoin and make payments possible, he's gonna object, I know, but my mindset is still stuck in that traumatic event of like especially when Bitcoin went up to 60,000, and I was like, don't remember how much you spent for that stupid iPhone that you don't even use anymore. What do you have to say to that, Sergej?
Well, I mean, don't you think that your purchase of an iPhone with Bitcoin in the early days was a factor in building your trust in Bitcoin, which in the end enabled you to acquire more Bitcoin, such that in the end, even though you can say that your iPhone cost you $70,000 or whatever, but maybe actually you ended up in the end trusting the system more, ending up with more Bitcoin today. And I mean, my observation is that people that have that story, like, they're usually not poor today.
Yeah, no. But the thing is that was part of Bitcoin becoming the network effect, because it seemed easy to acquire bunches of Bitcoin back then. So you spent it easily.
Yeah.
Now the mindset obviously changes as it's more valuable. But since then as well, like you're saying, like I understand the use case better, not necessarily for Western consumers like us, because we have many, many options for payments, tapping everywhere, or credit cards and checking accounts. Whereas when you're in El Salvador and you see people don't have bank accounts, the merchants don't have bank accounts, like nobody has bank accounts. Or when you see on a commerce, not as a consumer, but as individual in a nation state. So when you saw during the pandemic, part of how Nigeria became hyper-Bitcoinized was because there were no dollars. There was an absence of dollar liquidity in a lockdown global economy, but they couldn't lock down. They still needed to trade. But when they're importing used cars from Japan, they didn't have US dollars to send to the Japanese merchant sending them the cars. So they had to turn to Bitcoin because that was available. So on that level, yeah, it's a different, how I view it is different now than from when 10 years ago.
And we forget that here in this room, we are top 1% of individuals with bank accounts, with credit cards, multiple credit cards, multiple payment options. Yeah. But, a woman in Iran cannot open a bank account, for example. A grandma in Palestine cannot physically walk to a bank to open a bank account because she either has no papers or she's not allowed to cross the road for multiple reasons, right? So people like this hopefully that's what we're working towards for, right? The justice for individuals like this. But it's also very interesting, Sanja, what you are doing. You're a former PayPal employee, and I think we all have certain feelings towards PayPal, especially their recent policies where they penalize you for your thoughts and for your words. So tell us about your company and how you will take all the PayPal clients, certainly all of us, and help the merchants to accept crypto payments.
Sure. So before entering Web3, I worked in the corporate space for almost a decade. So I was in the telco space, in e-commerce, and we were chatting about this before. My background is I was born in Sarajevo, Bosnia, and my family had to escape the war, and I was always passionate about financial inclusion. And after PayPal, basically I was offered the opportunity to join PayPal, whose mission was creating financial inclusion. So I was very excited about that at the time. And basically what my team was doing was developing the payment solution for marketplaces. Because maybe you didn't know, like eBay and PayPal were one company before. And then when they split, PayPal was like, oh, I'm going to lose like 15% of my revenue, and I need to build a new payment solution for marketplaces. So it was the first time in my life that I really saw how traditional payments worked. And I was really ashamed of what we were selling to the customers. And that's basically what brought me to Web3 payments. And what I was mostly ashamed about at the time was the fact that our customers didn't even know like the fees that they were paying. It was not transparent, and something clicked in my mind to say like, okay, PayPal is acting basically like a bank. So if you're leaving your funds on the platform, they're gonna do whatever they want with the funds. They don't have your interest. So that's what brought me in Web3. So what Utrust is a Web3 payment solution, and we allow anyone to pay from any wallet in the market. We are multi-chain. So just to add on, what you said before, I think is important to give the option to customers to pay with different currencies. I think more than 70% of our volumes now is in stablecoins, because there are different cases of what people pay for, and we can talk about that later. And obviously, in emerging countries or in countries with super high inflation like Turkey, people already use crypto and Bitcoin as well for everyday purchases of goods and services, while in more developed countries, like we still have the behavior that it's going to be someone that made a lot of money in crypto buying real estate. So we need to grow a lot from there. And I think, related to PayPal, there's a whole scandal now on Twitter with cancel PayPal. And I think they reached like the limit of the craziness, where basically they decided to take it upon themselves to be able to fine you if you're speaking about them publicly in a way that they don't like, which doesn't make any sense. Then they detracted that, and then they slid it back in their policies a couple of days ago. So I think that's the most horrifying part for me about Web 2, that you're never safe if you're putting your money in a bank, if you're putting your money in a traditional payment platform. And just to conclude on that, what Web3 means in terms of payments for merchants as well, and what we are developing is a way for merchants not only to have a payment processor in crypto, but to be able to earn more with Utrust. So basically, when merchants will leave their money on the platform, we will help them with yield to earn more money. So that's the shift, like from someone taking money from you to someone helping you make more money.
Fantastic. Sergej, tell us about your company. You're quite active in El Salvador, but also in other jurisdictions. Tell us about how you are allowing for commerce to be happening in the purchase of the digital goods specifically.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working for 8 years now on the quest of building a circular economy, right? Because at the end of the day, all of the freedoms and all of the things that we talk about only really come into play when money starts to circulate within the Bitcoin layer, right? I mean, you can't bank the unbanked if they are required to have a bank account, right? And an exchange account is a bank account. So we can't, like an unbanked can receive a Bitcoin, but if they can't buy anything with it, then it becomes difficult, right? And so from the beginning, we've taken the approach. I mean, unlike many companies that work with merchants, we are customer focused, meaning that we build things. We start from the Bitcoin users and try to figure out, okay, what's the highest amount of things that we can actually enable them to buy with Bitcoin, with stablecoins, with whatever today. In a world in which, as you said, some small percent of the world population has any Bitcoin, and even a smaller percent is regularly transacting with it. So we start by focusing on the customers, and we work with gift cards, balance, phone refills, digital balances, bill payments, things like that, that we can enable people to buy a lot of different things. And I think our model has been quite successful in terms of getting users to actually use this stuff. But we're still only getting started, right? And we're not slowing down until using your Bitcoin wallet is no stranger than having a call over the internet, and remittances becomes a word in the same category as long distance phone calls, something that existed in the past, right? We're not here to improve remittances. We're here to obsolete the entire idea of it, because a Bitcoin is never here or there.
Well, it's all good to have those long-term visions, but as we earlier talked, I do not want to be seen living a Bitcoin bar, and I had, a nice dinner, relaxing dinner with my husband, and then somebody is like watching us walking out, right? That's, your OPSEC 101. When you ask me, show me your wallet or give me your wallet, my immediate reaction is, I have no wallets. OPSEC 101. What is this Bitcoin thing I've never heard about? So you're all talking about, making remittances obsolete, but also how do we make sure that, you don't get a $5 range attack once people know you actually have the wallets, and you can very easily be, relieved of those wallets. But let's So what's your thoughts on that?
It's a big factor holding back wide-scale adoption. What you describe, and the only way around it is to make it common, right? If everybody has a Bitcoin wallet the same way that everybody has some kind of wallet in their back pocket for regular money, right? Then it becomes normal, and then you don't become targeted. But there's a lot of things that doesn't require you to be seen, right? Especially when it comes, I mean, in the digital realm, right? You can, I mean, on Bitrefill, you can buy whatever you want. Nobody is going to see it, right? And there's all kinds of stuff online that you can do, and so on. And so, yeah, like I think the path is to start living in the future. And then, of course, OPSEC is a concern, but commerce is much, much, much bigger than physical commerce, right? It's always like in a new field, people are like, how do we apply this new technology to restaurants? But like, there's a lot more to commerce than restaurants. And
plus, everybody now, all these payment apps, the Bitcoin apps, they have physical cards. So people
sometimes they'll have a physical card. I mean, there's all kinds of ways around it, but fundamentally, if somebody wants to pay you in Bitcoin or something, you're going to need to have some kind of a wallet, right? Sure. And that's kind of the thing, that transactional usage of Bitcoin is very closely linked to usage of wallets, right? And like one of my big quests now is like, okay, how can we drive up usage of wallets? Because again, if it's only a store of value, then okay. But when you've stored your value and you're ready to take advantage of this value, what are you going to do? And in a world in which Bitcoin is only used, in a combination of hardware wallets and exchanges, that Bitcoin becomes captured.
Sure.
Because every on-ramp and off-ramp is a bank.
Or we can do what Joe is doing. He's walking around and literally giving out like $3, $2 worth of Bitcoin to people. We can all try doing that, and a lot of people are doing that and been doing that, because that's exactly, you don't just store it, you have to circulate it a little bit. Dan, talking about the circulation, went down to McDonald's, paid for my burger, used your infrastructure. So how did we get here? How did we? How did you get us here?
I mean, I was always a dreamer, and always in front of time, and I'm not ashamed of that. But the problem was that eventually you figure out that if the fundamentals doesn't work, you cannot, be in front of time. So we had to go a step back, come closer to the merchant, whatever they have already today, and digitalize their existing solutions that they have. We all hate hardware, but they wanted to have a POS. So we had to set up the POS. And then eventually they said, we don't want to have only crypto. We want to also serve the rest of the customers coming with cards. So we had to integrate the cards as well. But we try to slowly educate them and show them the real benefit of how much cheaper and more sophisticated is a payment with crypto, and what kind of a benefit gives it to them. And after 5 years, they're finally merchants getting it and keeping crypto on the account. And that's the way we want to go. McDonald's is an amazing experience over here. There is now 60+ locations, and I'm really happy we work this with Lugano, and Utrust is also doing that on the e-com. I think this is a revolution. Switzerland is a country that is showing the way in the financial sector, and I'm happy that it happened in El Salvador first. But we need to nail it over here. Then I think it's going to be easier for both of the sides to nail it further on. So I hope I answered your question.
You did, thank you. And we'll get back to that, talking about the initiative of the city of Lugano and the partnership with El Salvador and all of that. But Stacy, you've been orange pilling people about Bitcoin since 2013, 2012?
11, yeah.
2011. Well, I got orange pilled by you and Mike Skies in 2013. First of all, of course, thinking, what is this craziness? And then I was like, okay, maybe there is some logic to this madness. And back in those days, and when I started running Dubai meetups, people called us money launderers, helping drug traffickers, and all of that. The words they used to insult Bitcoiners back in the day, and still now are just incredible. But now we're getting to a situation where the winds are changing, right? McDonald's is accepting it, the government is accepting it for the payment of crypto. There's a really big, government initiatives happening all over the world. How do you see the consumer behavior changing? Back in the day, as Sergej is saying, you sort of like stored your value, but now we need to also allow for that value to be expanded and circulated. How do you see that? And what needs to happen more for that to happen more?
The world has changed so much since 11 years ago in terms of where we are in the process of globalization and deglobalization. So I think we're in a rapid phase of deglobalization now, and that's where Bitcoin as payments and commerce it'll excel now. You'll see it take on a different role because of the fact that U.S. treasuries can be seized, the fact that payments can be stopped via PayPal. Back in 2011, it was just WikiLeaks. They were targeted by Visa, MasterCard. They were the very first in our sort of field to be targeted for financial, exclusion. They were pushed off the grid. I think, as we were just talking about PayPal starting to fine people. I guess they're going to take $2,500 from your account if you have a tweet something bad. That's the beginning of a social credit score that China has. They're the innovators there, and now we're following. So I think that's where you're going to see that sort of behavior that big merchants, global corporations, nations will want Bitcoin. So in order to get it from consumers, I think you're going to see more of a discount having to be offered. Like, if you want my Bitcoin for your iPhone, well, you're going to give me a 20% discount from the shitcoin price, which is US dollar. So I think that's where you're going to see that over the next 10 years, because it looks to me, and I could be wrong, but I think if you look at the sanctions going on, the US is like sanctioning loads of different countries right now, not just Russia, but China. They're starting to imply sanctions there. And you have to just, like, anybody who has any sense needs to look at the writing on the wall and see, like, what's coming, that it's happened many times throughout history, globalization and then deglobalization. And if we're in deglobalization, well, Bitcoin's going to do very well during that. To hold it, not just like, the fiat conversion rate, but your sovereignty and your freedom to trade and transact with people around the world.
Absolutely, and we also forget that more than 6 billion people live in regimes where their speech is monitored, where there's a social credit system.
No, we all do. 8 billion do.
Okay, fine, 8 billion, but we also like... But we like to pretend that we still live in democracies, right? Although, look at what Canada is doing, what Australia is doing. I would have never put Australians and Canadians in oppressed sort of population, but we all do, right? So holding Bitcoin allows you to have that freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and, freedom of action. Completely on board with that. But you mentioned in deglobalization, Bitcoin will do very well, and individuals holding it will do very well. But how do we spread this message to the individuals outside of this room?
Put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then we could all see the same media. Everybody could be on Twitter right now. Like, who knows what happens in the future? But you have to protect yourself. That's what happens in deglobalization.
Fantastic, thank you. With Sanja, with the payments partnership that you did with the city of Lugano, and being able to pay taxes in Bitcoin, it brings us back to the same question. What discounts am I going to get if I pay with my very valuable Bitcoin for the taxes? Is there something, initiatives like this happening, or will the government be, friendlier towards those who pay in Bitcoin? And what will happen with this Bitcoin? Will it become a treasury of the city, which they will keep and then hopefully use for the benefits of the city, to give the benefits back to their people? Or can you give us some more information on that?
Yeah, sure. I think before that, just to comment on how adoption changed, because I think that's relevant. And obviously, we are, in the middle of a two-sided market. So we have customers on one side that want to pay with cryptocurrency, and then we have brands, platforms, merchants like governments on the other side that we partner with, and they can either, settle in crypto or fiat. And when we launched our solution to market, like in 2018, that was a very difficult sale because only like a small fraction of businesses wanted to have crypto. There was a lot of skepticism. And I think, what happened today, we live in a very different world where traditional merchants are actually coming to us, asking us to integrate, because it's not only a matter for merchants of, decreasing their fees, their chargebacks. It's a matter of appealing to a new asset class of customers that want to pay with crypto. And today that number is still relatively small. So we're talking about 300 million people or something more. But in less than 10 years, that number can be 1 billion people that wants to pay with crypto for multiple reasons. So that can be someone, as we said before, in Turkey or Argentina, that is hedging their wealth, not only in stable coins, but even having Bitcoin, it's less inflationary for them than their local currency. So interest in cryptocurrency is different now, both on the individual side and on the business side. What we're doing with Lugano is quite remarkable, because if you are familiar with Ticino, traditionally is a very traditional country. So what we're pushing here is very remarkable, and we partner with the government to be able to offer cryptocurrency payments for taxes for the citizens living in the city of Lugano. There's a lot of interest, but that's only phase one, because really what we want to achieve is how do we do this at scale to all the e-commerce merchant, and then with Dejan and Go Crypto to all the brick and mortar, because we partner together to be able to offer a solution for online and offline. And I would say, it's just the beginning, because we will see adoption in the next few years, and we're setting an example. If this is successful, imagine what we can do in other countries where there is even more need. So we were talking about remittances as well, and US and Mexico is the biggest remittance corridor, and I think it's 52 billion of transacted volume in remittance only last year. So imagine if we disrupt that with crypto, for people not to need to go to MoneyGram to take their cash and pay 20% fees on their money. So I don't know if I answered.
So Dan, while Sanja is trying to take all the PayPal customers, you're trying to build completely separate system to network and Visa, to take to MasterCard and Visa, trying to take away the MasterCard and Visa customers. Can you tell us more a little bit how will that work?
Well, so our goal is, I don't hate anyone, but I really hate a scheme like MasterCard and Visa, because it's so hooked into the transaction business that it's becoming a monopoly. And monopoly in this world doesn't work anymore. So what our goal is, it's decentralized payments in a way to create a scheme on which you can pay with everything or with anything, and the merchant will get whatever they want to have. And decentralizing payments and creating our own scheme that is decentralized, it's probably the right way to go. But the problem is, we need to go step by step in matter not to be hit in the ass. So we need to be hooked with the regulations there right now. I know it's hard to listen to that, but we need to listen to regulations, fit in the system, and then change the system inside out. Because if we're going to be the revolutionary guys coming into a country and just try to break everything in pieces, I believe it won't work. So it will go step by step, and I think eventually the governments, like El Salvador, and also here in Lugano, will see the benefits of that. And together, the whole community can actually help to build this kind of a movement. You know, it should not be owned by anyone, not by us, not by you, not by Utrust, you know. But somebody has to build it, and somebody has to put it out there to be used. So small steps, that's our goal. And I'm sure Utrust doesn't want to be a PayPal, but more a Stripe, that it's much more sexy. And we don't want to be MasterCard or Visa. We would rather be something that it's saving a problem to people and not take, you know, everything that merchant gets, but give back money to the people through the merchants.
I'm mentioning PayPal because so many of us are so mad about what they're doing, and I would, you know, want all of us to sort of, like, you know, close their accounts and to move to Utrust. But yeah, thank you for correcting me there. Stacy, what do you see as a longer-term vision for this type of businesses? We talked about the changing the consumer behavior, and these awesome guys are building the business. But how do we, you know, get a mass adoption for the guys sitting here?
I think it's ease of use. Like this, like for example, with your typical debit card or credit card, the contactless, you know, the tapping has changed my behavior in terms of, like, I love it. Like if they don't have that tap thing, it drives me crazy because I hate the whole, like, slow, oh my God, doing all this like work. It takes me 5 seconds now instead of half a second, and it adds up. So I think I've seen your product yesterday, and it was pretty amazing. It was like this contactless sort of system, and I was impressed. We're going to be bringing him over to El Salvador and for Adopting Bitcoin conference.
Thank you, Mama. Thanks.
And Sergej, of course, is working a lot in El Salvador as well. Yeah, again, but I right now for me, my mindset is like that it is the commerce on the international level, the between nations, between jurisdictions. You know, a consumer in Lugano wanting to buy something from El Salvador, there's a lot of censorship starting to happen, not just on PayPal, but on nation-state level, bank level. So I think, you know, but people still want to trade. Like what I said at the top of this session is like Nigerians couldn't shut down their economy. They don't have a currency they can print, and everybody work from home and like have PPP loans and all sorts of like free money from the government. So they had to keep on working. But if the rest of the world decides to just shut down and like take a vacation for a year, then you're like, how do I keep on trading so I could eat today? You're going to see more of this as the system breaks down. So I think that's like, for me, the most important thing is I think probably they'll also, because of that demand, because of that need, a lot of these products and services will have to, like, will include that on a, you know, trading from Nigeria to Japan, like providing a way for that transaction to happen will naturally, you know, necessity drives innovation. So I think you'll start to see that.
Yeah, I think two things need to happen for mass adoption to really happen in the next few years. And I think the first thing is for people to perceive that the problems they have can be better solved with Web3 solutions. And that's happening now, but it wasn't the case so far because, like, let's be honest, as you said before, like less than 1% of people in the world have cryptocurrency. So that's starting to happen with, you know, PayPal, with some scandals in governments, and like people are starting to opening their eyes. And I think the second thing is about simplicity of use, because again, like, let's be honest, transacting today with you know, most of the solutions that are there is not easy for everyday people. So that's why when we designed our solution, we did it in a way that anyone can integrate it without even having blockchain knowledge and crypto knowledge, because still I think, in the transition phase, we need to have sort of like a Web2 look for people to come on board. So I think these are the main two challenges for the next few years.
I might want to add, I met somebody here at this conference who's a huge in global trade, retail, and in terms of like cotton. And he actually said that he trades all over the world and a huge amount with India. And almost all of their settlements are actually done in Bitcoin.
And I'll tell you why. We do a lot of business with India, 1 billion plus people there. And talking about the government sanctions or the government censorship, the government does not allow international payments to come out of India unless you get like 3 folders full of paperwork to explain. And I'm a law firm in Dubai, they require to submit 3 folders full of paperwork to explain why they're paying a lawyer in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So that these things make sense. India makes perfect sense, transacting with this huge economy. Sergej, talking about growth of the adoption and the growth of transactions, how, what's your view? How do we get there? How do we explain everybody?
All of the things that were said are true, right? Fundamentally, it's a chicken and egg type problem, and how do we get it to circulate? We need more chickens, we need more eggs. We can build better chickens and hope for the eggs to come, and they will come, and especially because of external pressures or whatever. I would add another thing to this. We're all techies at some level who hang out at conferences like this. So I always want to bring up marketing. Because it's most people that use Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, whatever, most of them that use it today do not go to Bitcoin conferences, right? For the same reason that most people who use a car do not go to a car conference, right? It's a thing, right? And so a big question, and this is like we found from user research that sure, we have certain, I'm sure several people here are Bitrefill users, and great, but there's also a lot of people that wouldn't never even think of going to a Bitcoin conference, because why? It's just a thing. Like, I don't go to BitTorrent conferences or Spotify conferences
Internet
or whatever.
Conference.
Right? And so it's very, I think, important. Depending on what your vision is, like if it is required that 8 billion people in the world become Bitcoin believers and members of the movement and share in the set of ideals that we have, or if we want to reach a lot of people with a tool, right? And if we want to reach a lot of people with a tool, then it's actually important to market to them, because there's a lot of people out there that might use Bitcoin because it enables them to get paid and work for a company in another country or whatever. But they don't end up at a conference. We can even run the numbers. How many people, I don't know, Coinbase has 100 million customers, Binance even more, right? How many people go to Bitcoin conferences if we just round them up? Yeah, well, maybe 100,000 or something in the world, right? So there's a very large number of people that are today already using this stuff that are not engaging in these forums. And I think it's very important to figure out, and this is a difficult problem, right? Because we're good at this, we all show up, we hang out, we have drinks, we sit on panels and whatever. But how to figure out how to reach the people that just want to get paid, or people that just want to buy something in a different country or stuff like that.
I think the need, look at Tether, okay? They don't market, and what happened? It was found by the arb traders on its own. They didn't, Tether in 2014 didn't go, look, hey, we have this tool that could help you with the arbitrage between 2 exchanges across the world. The same thing with Venezuela or any country having hyperinflation. They all know the dollar. They know that they couldn't go to, there was an absence, there was a lack of liquidity for dollars. They couldn't find dollars, and they found this thing called Tether. And that's, that sort of need drives.
Sure.
They'll find your product if it's good, and they'll find Bitcoin once once they realize what happens in deglobalization.
And also the governments are doing really good job advertising for Bitcoin.
Yes,
look at the government of Lebanon, failed the Lebanese people. People literally take the guns, go to the banks to rob the banks at a gunpoint because the banks are not giving them the money. For me, this is the best advertisement for Bitcoin.
The Cyprus bail-ins, that was a huge event in 2013, I think it was. Remember, they seized everybody's bank. Anything above 100,000 euros, they seized it.
Yeah.
And that was a huge driver. That was a marketing event, the biggest one at that time for Bitcoin. So those sort of things will just drive the adoption. Like she said, they're marketing for us.
Sure, absolutely, but it's still, if you sort of follow the user journey of such a person who gets triggered by a certain external event in the world, and sort of okay, imagine you know nothing about anything. You type in Bitcoin into Google, or in the App Store, and what are the things that you install, and there's still a lot of things that we can do better in terms of communicating. What are all of the different things that you can use? What are all the different services? Here's what you can do here, what you can do there, and so on. Right? I mean, there is a body of knowledge that
for sure. And another thing that Dan mentioned just before the panel, the wealth of families is controlled by women, and also 50% of the world are women, so 50% of the merchants are women, but the participation of women in the crypto economy is actually very, very low. And I think that is one of those, if the marketing at that audience is also solving a problem of this audiences can help, what do you think, Dan? Will it help to increase the commerce using cryptocurrencies?
For sure. I mean, I agree 100% with what you said. In the high inflation markets, this is a painkiller, but it needs to be simple to use. We should not overcomplex it. We need to create UIs, lower the complexity and give it to the people, and people will take it for theirs because it's solving a problem. Me and Sanja, we lived in a country with hyperinflation. In ex-Yugoslavia, my mom got a salary. Next day, it was worth nothing. Now imagine, so yeah, that's it.
Yeah, like we keep saying, the governments are doing the best job, converting us into Bitcoiners. My family ran away from Soviet Union without even $1 in their pocket, and they had to run for their lives. They abandoned everything. So for me, Bitcoin just logical, of course, it's mine. Nobody can take it away. And Sergej, you had a similar example with your family, where do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think we had much wealth anyway, so yeah. But absolutely, I mean, we talk about these things like, I imagine there's a big crisis. You need to flee the country. How do you bring your Bitcoin? How do you do? What if your multisig is locked in a safe in a bank and the city is blocked and blah blah blah? But these are luxury problems, because in most of the history of the time, if you need to leave your country, you kind of leave everything behind and you start afresh, right? So we already improved quite a bit, on the status quo.
Well, I mean, look at what happened. You mentioned Lebanon, because what those people are robbing the banks for their money back is in U.S. dollars. They saved in U.S. dollars thinking they were protecting themselves from the hyperinflation of local currency that tends to happen. So they had dollars in the bank, and then the government decided they needed the hard money. So even they thought they were protecting themselves. That's why I'm saying that's like censorship. That's theft of your, because dollars can be seized, but your Bitcoin can't. So that's what necessity will drive the Bitcoin adoption.
Of course. And I want to thank you for the hard work you're doing with the city of Lugano, and I want to thank you for the hard work you're doing in El Salvador, because then we all who are coming from the international, sort of from other countries, can learn, can study your use cases, can lobby our governments, can lobby our countries for something similar. I really thank you for your hard work. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks.